But right now we're going to focus on our own self-judgment. So judgments are thoughts that we have about others or ourselves that we often believe are true. They help us stay stuck and paralyzed in our own lives. So the goal here with DBT is to mindfully notice that judgment, accept that it's there, and then engage in some process of letting it go. Okay? So these are a couple of examples. I didn't want to go into too much depth and cover a lot of possibilities, but one judgment could be I'm unlovable as an example of a self-judgment, or I'm a bad person for such and such reason. So I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind just writing here. I could give you a pen. Oh, do you have one? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you wouldn't mind just at first writing a couple judgments that you have about yourself without, just kind of committing them to paper and taking your time.
Sure, I'll go with this one. That's on here.
So what were a couple that you came up with?
Okay, I came up with I'm bossy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a perfectionist. I'm very critical of others. And I'll go with I'm unlovable.
Okay. Okay, a few of them, they're unlovable. You're pretty good at self-judgment identification because I was asking you for 2 and you quickly came up with 4. So you're an excellent self-judgment person. So I'm bossy, I'm perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
So those kind of connect, right, on some level or not? Because you have an idea about what's supposed to be happening.
Right.
And then somehow people aren't following your idea about what's supposed to be happening.
Right.
And then you can get
Angry, agitated.
you can get angry and agitated at them.
Yes.
Right. And then critical of others, right? So people aren't measuring up somehow.
Right.
You have a sense of a standard of what's supposed to happen and it's not happening.
Exactly.
And then it ends up being that
It ends up being that I'm looking at them as if, how can you not see this? I mean, are you that lost? Now you say, are you that dumb? Come on now.
are you that dumb? Right, right. So that there's a kind of impatience and
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very impatient.
Very impatient. Okay. And how does unlovable connect to some of that, or?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe being bossy, people might look at me as, oh my gosh, I can't really deal with her because she's a bossy and pushy of something.
I can't really deal with her because she's a bossy.
Bossy and pushy.
Mm-hmm. So then they kind of back off, and it's
Yes.
hard to kind of maybe get close to you because it's you're sensing that they feel like.
I sense that they fear me because I can be critical. And like I said, I'm a perfectionist.
Right.
So people don't want to make mistakes.
Yeah. So that makes it hard for people to get close to you on some
Yes.
level. So if people are able to get close to you, you could be more lovable. It's like a vicious cycle, right?
Yes.
So the sense of unlovable, where do you think that, like when did that start happening? Do you feel like that?
Probably when in the military, when I was over people. I had subordinates, and they didn't do things right, and being over them, I could make them do what I wanted them to do. Yeah.
You could make them do what you wanted them to do, which on some level, right,
Oh no, they did what I told them
right.
to do.
No,
Yes.
I get it.
Yes.
I believe you. And on some level in the military, it's really supposed to be that way, right? It's not about questioning authority in the
Yes.
military. There's a value in that kind of clarity about this is what you're supposed to do, and
Right.
if you don't do it, you're doing the wrong thing.
There is, however, there's always another way of doing things. I just wanted it done my way.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And how did that end up working in the military? Or are you still involved with the military?
No, I retired.
Okay.
How did that end up working? It worked fine for me.
Okay. You were able to kind of survive in it and move through it, and
Yes.
people knew who was in charge
Yes,
and what the expectations were. There was a clarity in that.
yes.
Okay. Which is somewhat am I missing it, or is it?
It's the culture, yes.
Okay. So did it ever feel like in the military you were too bossy, or would that kind of feel
Oh,
like
yes.
a good, yeah, okay, so too bossy in the military. Okay. So kind of still that that view of kind of being rigid and
Yes.
and as a result kind of carrying that on for a while, and
Yes.
then to the point where now it's hard for people to
Yes.
get close to you and connect.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any more about that that you would help me kind of understand that unlovable part?
Let me see. Well, let me see. Since everybody's watching over there.
They're not really watching. They're
Oh,
just,
it's okay. I don't care. So maybe as a child, my parents had 4 children. The 2 oldest, there was a big gap between us, and I was the 3rd child. And there was a baby sister, so she stayed with my grandmother, and I actually was by myself, but I always used to visualize and dream that my real family was going to come and get me one day and save me. So, because my parents really didn't have time for me, so I was always by myself.
Yeah. So that sense of independence was, you needed to develop that to...
Right, but I always felt like my parents didn't really care about me because they let my baby sister stay with my grandparents. The older 2 were doing their own thing, and I was always by myself.
Yeah. So that unlovable theme is really kind of has
Yes.
its roots pretty deeply for you.
It does.
Yeah. And you've come to understand that on some level.
I have.
Okay. And has that been helpful on it to any level? Understanding it?
I accept that my parents, I can't ever remember either one of them saying that I love you as me as a child in my life. I accept that. I mean, they're both deceased now. I have to.
Right.
Which has probably caused me in the past to put an imaginary wall around me, so that if you don't tell me you love me, that's okay because I'm used to that.
Right. Right. So kind of that tough kind of shell that's really helped you get through
Yes.
a life that's been pretty challenging. Okay. I appreciate that. So, a lot of times when we do this cognitive approach, we kind of flip the idea of I'm unlovable to I'm lovable, and there's evidence for that in different situations, right? I'm sure there's different times where people have connected with you and maybe
Yes.
found you lovable, and
Yes.
you can say, well, no, actually I am, because even if it just took one time where it happened,
Yes.
that means that you're lovable. But there's still, even despite that evidence, there's still sometimes you can sink into that I'm unlovable, that
Yes.
belief, right? Even though there's contrary evidence.
Exactly.
So, like again, as it says here, moving back and forth between, here it says I'm a no good loser, I'm a good person,
Yes.
I'm unlovable, no, I am lovable. Sometimes the strategy works, many times it doesn't. You're still involved in judging yourself. That's one of the things of,
Yes.
am I lovable or am I unlovable? It's still kind of this judgment. So here, in this activity, the goal is to really begin to have a sense of letting go of the judgment.
Okay.
Okay. And if you wouldn't mind, we could do an activity that's pretty similar to what we did this morning. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay, great. So using mindfulness on the next page, we learn how to witness the judgments for what it is, or what they are, that they're thoughts and not facts. Okay? Thoughts and not facts. As we witness them and do not engage with them, we're in a better position to let them go. Almost have a sense of, oh, there's that judgment again,
Yes.
right? Rather than intellectually analyzing it. So choosing that judgment of I'm unlovable, if you wouldn't mind, whichever you feel most comfortable with, you can close your eyes fully or just have a gentle gaze downward. Whatever feels best to you. I'm going to kind of keep my head in the manual right now. So letting that judgment that you chose, maybe actually starting with a couple of deeper breaths just to kind of settle things. Really having a sense that this is an exploration and that we're not moving into a realm of performance. And connecting to the breath, taking a couple of deeper breaths. And letting that judgment you chose, I'm unlovable, enter the mind. And seeing if you can see that judgment as a collection of words. Separate words that no longer represents who you really are. A collection of words that no longer represents who you really are. And maybe having an experience of releasing the judgment, sometimes letting our hands open up a little bit more, kind of releasing our grip on the judgment. Maybe releasing the judgment from our heart. Maybe having a sense of things opening up in the chest. Kind of engaging in that process of letting go of the judgment. And then putting your attention back on your breath. And then taking the time you would like to open your eyes fully. Oops. So what was your experience of doing that exercise?
Well, the words were actually, you're not loved. And I could actually, take away the you at one at a time. So just moving each word away one at a time.
Okay.
And then focusing back on the breathing so as to not let it come back to me.
Okay. So having a sense of the words kind of one at a time, kind of
Yes.
getting some space from them, and then coming back to the breath so it's not
So that,
a
yeah.
thought that's going to find its way back.
Yes.
So what was that? What kind of experience was that for you?
Well, I had to actually, it was hard to push the words out. It was really hard to push them out because I kept hearing the unlovable, and so it was like an effort for me to push it out.
It was an effort to push them out. And they're so, it feels like it's so concrete, right? It feels like you've been holding that for so long, so it's not going to just drift away or that sort of thing.
Right.
It takes some effort to do that.
It did.
Yeah. And then the effort maybe has a little bit of benefit, but not necessarily that much. Is that?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Not that much.
So maybe a little glimpse or a little window of
Yes.
something, but okay.
Yeah.
And you don't have to.
I mean like a little
yeah.
glimpse of, okay, well, like I said, there are times when, okay, I have to be lovable because, so,
Okay, so maybe, yeah, sensing that possibility or that possible reality that there is some lovability
Right.
about you. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay. So, you talked about the next part. I don't know if you want to pick up your book again or not, and I'm just going to check the time just so, yeah. We've you touched really deeply on the story about how that kind of fits for your life. And another thing to consider is some of the letting go process also means letting go of the story. Story can sound kind of like it's insulting, as if, oh, all these events didn't really matter. So that's not what the story is about, really. It's more like, I really have this idea, this encased idea about unlovability, and it's all part of my upbringing. Very real, and it really makes a lot of sense. And what would it be like to let go of some of that, or is that even possible? And maybe you said you kind of made peace with your parents.
I made peace with it.
Right, right. And then what about the compassion part? We just kind of touched on that at the end of the day. How does that fit in with any of this? Is that ever something you think about kind of bringing into your life, that compassion for yourself?
Oh, well, I never thought about compassion on me for me. They didn't say it. They're not going to say it. They
Right.
can't say it now, and I'm okay with that. I mean,
Okay. So you never felt it in your own life in terms of growing up? You didn't
That-
feel very much of people's compassion for you?
oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really by myself.
So what do you think about in terms of compassion for yourself? So that's that idea again of, I really have the wish that my suffering be lessened.
No, I've never thought about that. That goes back to it's done, it's over with. I don't dwell on it.
Right.
I mean, I don't dwell on it as in, there's nothing I can do to change it. So it's done. So compassion, I think it's made me the person that I am today, to make sure when I care about people to let them know.
Okay. So you've taken in some lessons about how to
Yes.
treat other people.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, so the compassion for yourself, I'm just going to throw it out there as a suggestion, and
Okay.
I'm aware of the time also, so that's part of this. The compassion for yourself part of things is even just having that, again, that kind of hope that some of your struggles be relieved on some level.
Okay.
I actually think it's present, that's why you volunteered to do this, right?
No, I volunteer because nobody else did.
Somebody's got to step up, right? That's the kind of, right, that military part
Yes.
kind of came out. Somebody's got to
Yeah.
step up. So, but you're also going to a level of depth about yourself and taking some risks.
Right,
And-
because it doesn't control who I am
Okay,
anymore. At one point it did,
okay.
and I don't allow that to control me anymore.
Okay.
So, no.
So you're feeling some liberation from this
Yes.
I'm unlovable part.
Yeah, so I'm okay with sharing it.
Right.
Because somebody else may be thinking the same thing, but they don't want to share it.
Right.
I'm okay with sharing my
Okay.
past.
Okay. And do you imagine getting to a place where that I'm unlovable actually has a little bit less of a grip on your life? Is that
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. Yeah.
so you can see yourself moving in that direction?
Oh, yes, I mean, I have to be lovable. My adult kids try to surprise me every year for my birthday with silly stuff. I mean, it's funny what they do. They send me robes at one point, and then they'll send, so for them to go through all of that, yeah.
So even as unlovable as you are, they still find a way to
Oh,
love
yes.
you,
Oh,
right?
yes,
Right.
yeah.
I
So-
appreciate that.
Yep.
I appreciate that. What do you feel like is a takeaway for yourself with this experience?
Takeaway. I don't know, just for me, it's always be willing to share who you are, because you never know who may benefit from it.
Okay.
So, I mean,
So, and this has been an affirmation of that kind of willingness
Yes,
to share.
yes. It's an affirmation that I refuse to allow somebody else's action or non-action to control who I am and what I do.
So, you know, for an unlovable person, that was a very lovable thing that you decided to do. I'll just say that much.
Well, thank you.
So thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
being willing to do this. I really appreciate it.